The curious case of Counting On's Jinger Duggar, AI, Ghostwriters, or something else? In the world of reality TV stars turned authors, few generate as much whispering speculation as Jinger Duggar Vuolo. Best known for her role on Counting On and her large, conservative Duggar family, Jinger has since published multiple books and built a significant online presence. But lately, she's found herself at the center of a somewhat unusual controversy. Fans and observers are asking, did she really write her new book, People Pleaser, breaking free from the burden of imaginary expectations? Or did she rely on something more artificial than inspiration, like ghostwriters or even AI? The spark of suspicion. The rumors are not entirely new. On Reddit, some longtime Duggar watchers have openly questioned whether Jinger is the actual author of her work. For example, greater than that book was totally ghostwritten. There are parts of this that are literally copied and pasted from online articles. This feels like an AI program wrote the book as Jinger. Another thread claims a specific ghostwriter was involved, but the ghost wrote it a writer named Bethany Mager. A commenter noted, pointing to the suspicion that Jinger and her husband Jeremy did not pen the book entirely by themselves. Some readers supporting this theory argue that while using a ghostwriter is common, especially for public figures, the style of writing in Jinger's book feels disconnected from her persona. One critic went so far as to suggest that she doesn't even have time to write. Greater than, is that Jinger? This is a new, worse word salad. They use ghostwriters for sure. The AI angle. If ghostwriting was already a hot topic, then the whisper of AI added a more modern twist. Some Reddit users have speculated that large chunks of the book don't just feel disconnected. They sound robotic. In one post, greater than, this feels like an AI program wrote the book as Jinger. While these claims remain speculative, no one has produced a smoking gun proof that an AI actually wrote it. The sentiment reflects a growing cultural anxiety. With the rise of generative AI, who really writes books anymore? What the media is saying. Percy gained enough traction that IMDb ran a headline. Counting on Jinger Duggar accused of using AI or ghostwriters. The piece notes that Reddit discussions have highlighted how Jinger has been promoting her book heavily through interviews, podcasts, and Instagram, all while being pregnant with her third child, raising questions about how much of her writing is truly her own. Meanwhile, Muse speculated that Jinger might have even signed a non-disclosure agreement (NDA). According to that report, some fans believe she toned down parts of her story, perhaps to protect her family image, and that her book seems watered down. They go on to suggest that the ghostwriter may even be associated with her church, raising the possibility that the narrative in the book is more curated than confessional. The critics weigh in. Some of the strongest critiques come from longtime fans on Reddit. In one thread, users tied together multiple suspicions. The book's tone is juvenile. One person said the writing reads like a fourth-grade writing assignment. The alleged ghostwriter. Several comments name Bethany Mager as the likely collaborator. The possibility of an NDA. Some feel Jinger didn't have full creative freedom, especially in recounting her upbringing. To those critics, the concern isn't just about authenticity. It's about agency. If Jinger's voice is being mediated too heavily by ghostwriters, publishers, or her own personal commitments, are readers really hearing her? Or are they being fed a carefully polished, possibly sanitized version of her story? But is it fair? Ghostwriting is hardly a scandal in literary circles. Many public figures rely on professional writers to help craft their memoirs. Indeed, according to a Reddit user, greater than ghostwriting is very common. They just tape conversations. The ghostwriter compile the information to create the book. Moreover, another user quietly defended the arrangement, arguing that using a ghostwriter doesn't necessarily mean inauthenticity. Greater than, it's not something out of the ordinary. Writing a book isn't easy. They still need ghostwriters. These defenders suggest that listening to a ghostwriter's refinement doesn't erase the subject's voice. Instead, it can simply make the message more coherent, structured, and accessible. The stakes. Why does any of this matter to fans and critics? Because Jinger Duggar isn't just a celebrity. She's someone who built her platform on intimacy, growing up on Counting On, then leaving that world to find her own path, all while speaking about faith, family trauma, and what it means to be free. If her books are perceived as ghostwritten or AI-generated, it risks undermining that trust. For many fans, the Duggar family story is compelling precisely because it feels raw, personal, and relatable, even if it's within a very particular world. Watered down or mediated by others feeds into a broader wariness. Are we really getting her perspective? or a version that's curated for mass appeal? What Jinger has said or not. To date, Jinger hasn't publicly addressed the AI accusations. And while she has promoted her book extensively, she hasn't posted a detailed behind-the-scenes peek into her writing process. Still, some of her past comments suggest she's not naive about the way media works. On her podcast with Jeremy, she mentioned how TLC manipulated footage on Counting On. She described viewing rough cuts of episodes and sometimes realizing, no, I didn't mean that. That admission could be seen as evidence she is conscious of narrative framing, that her story is, in part, co-constructed with others. Why the debate might not go away. 1. The rise of AI. As generative AI becomes more mainstream, people are increasingly suspicious about who or what writes books. The Jinger Duggar controversy taps into a larger cultural anxiety about authenticity in the age of smart machines. 2. Celebrity publishing norms. Ghostwriting is common, but when public figures write about deeply personal or controversial topics, readers often want assurance that their stories are genuinely theirs. The possibility of ghostwriters or NDAs muddies that reassurance. 3. Platform and persona. Jinger's identity is deeply tied to her past on Counting On, her fate, and her transformations. When she writes about leaving behind fear or navigating expectations, readers assume she's sharing from the heart. If her words feel curated, that assumption falters. 4. Community accountability. For a community like the Duggar fandom or critics invested in her life, there's a strong incentive to call out anything that feels off. That includes writing style, promotional tactics, and inconsistencies. What to watch next? An official response. A clear, transparent statement from Jinger or her publisher addressing whether she used a ghostwriter or how much help she had would go a long way in addressing criticisms. Behind-the-scenes content. If she shared her process, draft pages, interviews with her editor, or writing sessions, it could help fans feel more connected to her as an author. Future projects. Will Jinger continue to publish? If she writes a more memoir-like book or tackles new themes, the same skepticism may resurface unless she changes her approach. Final thought. Whether or not Jinger Duggar used AI or ghostwriters, the criticism she's facing reveals more than just fan skepticism. It reflects something deeper about authenticity, voice, and the way public figures tell their stories. In an age where anyone can generate text with an algorithm or hire a writer to polish their thoughts, readers are increasingly wary. They want to feel like they're not just reading a brand, but a real, living, breathing person. For Jinger, the challenge is clear. To prove that her journey of self-reflection and faith isn't just well-packaged, it's genuine. And for her readers, the question remains, are the words we read truly hers, or a co-authored performance crafted for maximum impact? If you like, I could also write this as a more journalistic style article, or a social media post summarizing the controversy. Which would you prefer? Just well-packaged, it's genuine. And for her readers, the question remains, are the words we read truly hers, or a co-authored performance crafted for maximum impact? If you like, I could also write this as a more journalistic style article, or a social media post summarizing the controversy. Which would you prefer?